In this video, we're going to look at 5 custom garden enclosures to give you some ideas and inspiration for protecting your garden this spring. And these are made with off-the-shelf EMT electrical conduit and clamps from MakerPipe.com. And if you don't know, you can combine those two materials really easily using simple handheld tools, and you don't have to do any welding. You can build all kinds of awesome projects, including these enclosures that we're going to check out today. And you can customize these, you can build your own, just take some different pieces and techniques from what we're going to talk about today, and you can build your own enclosure and customize it for your needs. But first of all, we've got this one from Robert, and it's really fantastic, and I think a really common design that we see, and one that, if you're just needing a simple rectangular enclosure to protect your plants, then this is a really great design that you can use. And essentially this just uses a couple of the main connector types that we see really commonly used to make rectangles for everything from batting cages to shelving systems to enclosures, as we can see here. And so we'll highlight a couple of those connectors here, and you can kind of see how they work. Essentially, we've got in the corners 90-degree connectors, which are the most common connector that you'll use or see in a rectangular build. We've got 90s here on the corner, and it's pretty much in every single corner on the end here, on this side and here as well. Just 6 of those in total. And those allow you to make a 3-way corner connection because a piece of conduit runs through the middle of the connection and then has 2 pieces of conduit that come out and and make a 90-degree corner. And they're just the main connector that you'll use for making anything that's the rectangular shape. And then a connector that pairs really well with those is the 180-degree connector, because this allows you to essentially extend your frame and kind of make the walls of your rectangle really easily. And this works very similarly, where it has a piece of conduit running continuously through the middle of the connection and then has 2 pieces that terminate in the connector and kind of connect between the 180-degree connectors. And that's exactly all he did to make these walls. Just connected this piece of conduit to the 180, between the 90 and the 180, and then between the 2 180s here, and then between the 2 180s here, and then back again to the 90 on the other side. And this technique is really common and really easy to do, and allows you to make a square or rectangular cube, and you can extend it and brace it well and pretty much make it to any width or length that you need. And that's exactly what Robert did here for his custom enclosure for his garden. And it's really awesome. We can also see that he used some 45-degree connectors to add some bracing in the corners, which is a really good thing to do in these kind of builds that are larger. We can see that he used 90-degree connectors flipped over on their side to add some roofing panels to hold the enclosure up. And all in all, it's a really great build. A lot of connectors being used, but a really good example of a custom enclosure that you can make. And then from there, once you have your steel frame, all you have to do is add the enclosure material on the outside. And it looks like he's using zip ties to secure some hardware cloth, and that's working well. And then a really common thing that you're going to need if you're doing an enclosure of any kind is a gate to be able to get inside. And so what Robert's done here is pretty much just frame out this gate that he can use to get in and out of the garden. And he's using the 3D printed hinges that we have on our website. And these are made and sold by a community member, Billy from Northwoods Engineered, and we also partnered with him to sell them on our website, and those work pretty good to allow you to make gates. And then here we can see where he's got the latch from Billy as well, and that works really awesome to make gates for custom enclosures. But this is really good from Robert. Really appreciate him sharing this, and just a lot of good ideas in here that you can copy and use in your own custom enclosures. So thanks again, Robert. Really love seeing it. This one is from James, and this is really awesome. He's got this kind of short fence, and I guess it's kind of built into, or the garden beds are built into this outer wall as well. These are really look really good, really well done. And essentially he's just built on top of those using the MakerPipe flanges here, as we can see, in just a few different spots with pieces of conduit going up. And then this one is a little bit different. It actually has bent corners using a handheld tubing bender. It's another great tool that you can use when working with the EMT conduit, and it's not too complicated and gives you a lot of possibilities. Then we can see here a lot of the similar connectors that we just talked about. We got 90-degree connectors. We've got 180-degree connectors. We've got some 45-degree bracing in there, and he also added some other bracing using some of the more complex connectors like the adjustable 180, and it's not that complex. It's just a little bit different than the 90 or the 180, where it has adjustable sides and allows you to add angled bracing, in different orientations. So that's really cool and useful for larger builds. But all in all, it's pretty similar from the previous one. Like I said, you can just customize the width and the length based on that, and then just use these same connectors like the 180 degree 90s being used on the walls to create these kind of side panels all the way around the entire outside. And then we've got T connectors being used to add some bracing up at the top there and just kind of reinforce those corners, which is really cool. And then here, this one, he's actually got a wooden doorway that he built, and this is just a really well done frame. Really large, as we can see here. You may not have something this large, that's okay. You can do the same design or the same techniques and make it more compact for wherever you're working at. And we're also going to look at some more builds here soon. But this is a really awesome one, and all it needs is some enclosure material on the outside, and you can use zip ties or metal zip ties to secure that in place, and it works really well. But really awesome, and I think the main highlight of this one is if you're working with a raised bed or a wooden platform or something that you want to build off of to enclose, you can use some of the MakerPipe flanges, and you can do that really easily. So thanks so much for sharing this. Really awesome one. Next up is a smaller enclosure from Bob, and this is really awesome. I love this one. This one is custom painted and has the green plastic fencing, so I think it has a nice look. Really fits into the landscape, and with the house in the background, just looks really nice. And this is a cool garden bed. I wish I knew more detail about this garden bed, because it looks like it actually has a mounting post in the corners to mount something. I doubt it's made for conduit, but if it is, that's even more cool. Of course, we love conduit and things that are made for conduit, but essentially here he's just using, I think it's 1/2-inch EMT conduit inside these corners, and those pieces of conduit are extended up, and then he's using some 90-degree connectors in the corners to be able to kind of make this rectangle, as we've been talking about. Just really the same techniques with the 90-degree connectors in the corners, with the 180-degree connectors just a few feet down, and just a little bit smaller than the previous ones that we've looked at, or a lot smaller, because it's just essentially around these garden beds look to be like 4 foot by 8 foot. And so it's not as many connectors, but again, just that same kind of design and same technique to be able to enclose this and work in a smaller space. As I've mentioned, you can customize and use these techniques and ideas and make them specifically for your space, as we can see here from Bob. So that's really cool. And this one doesn't have, plastic on top. It's just the sides, and it really just depends on the animal that you're keeping out and what your goals are. But really awesome one from Bob, and great ideas in here. Love seeing it. Next up is another really massive one. This one comes from Sandy, and this one is really elaborate and might not be one that everybody wants to recreate. I definitely think it's awesome and would love to have something like this if I had a garden this big. This one has an arched roof, where essentially she used a handheld tubing bender and did incremental bending to make the archways, and she secured those with some of the connectors that we have that are called adjustable angle connectors, and that's a really good technique. I think haven't really seen this done a lot, but I think it's a great technique because it allows you to add a piece of conduit, or the roofing panel is able to extend through the connector and then extends off a few feet. So you could use that to make eaves if you're doing like a greenhouse or something. That way, if you've got rain or snow coming, it'll slide right off instead of, collecting on top. So that's really cool. This is a really elaborate one and is similar to what we've looked at in terms of the shape, but this is a different technique to accomplish it, sort of, because we can see 90s being used in the corners, 180-degree connectors being used in that same way, just to kind of make that main rectangular frame, except the difference is the pieces of conduit are extending completely through the connections, and then again, like I said, using the adjustable angle hinge connectors at the very top of those verticals to add the roofing panels. We can see here that she's attached some conduit to different areas, and those are kind of extending down and adding some trellis netting and trellis support for the plants underneath. And again, this is just a really elaborate one. A lot of cool stuff in this one. And there's a cool gate that she's got that's really large, which makes it easy to get in and out of. I think she actually used the PVC aluminum snap-on hinges, which I'll link a video about those down below. Those are another really great option for making gates in your builds. And so definitely check that out if you're interested. I like those. They're metal, and they're made for PVC, but they work really well for conduit as well. But really fantastic, and just a great example of another large enclosure that you can make to protect your garden. And as we can see, it's just looks really awesome and is a little bit more elaborate, like I said, but just really cool if you got the space for it, and you want to use the handheld tubing bender to add some arches and some nice aesthetics to your garden. But really cool, Sandy. Thanks so much for sharing this. Last but not least are these really simple cages that I love from Sam. And I mentioned earlier on that sometimes it's just pretty much a cube with 8 90-degree connectors, and that's exactly what we got here. Just a 90 in each corner to make these cubes. and then essentially just a few T connectors and some 45-degree connectors to be able to brace, as we can see throughout this frame, and not too complicated. We actually have a full build breakdown of this frame that I'll link down below you can check out, but essentially just using those 890s, just made a box perfectly sized to sit on top of these raised garden beds, and then use some of the electrical hanger straps to secure the frames in place there, and that's really awesome. And one thing I love about this is the fact that they use 4 of the hinges to make kind of a double gate, because you want to have good access. A lot of times we see some smaller gates, but if you want to really get inside there, get your hands dirty, and be able to move around really easily, then making a double gate like this is really awesome. And something else I wanted to mention, these are mounted with the electrical hanger straps, but you can also use things like 1-hole straps or 2-hole straps, and those work really well if you're attaching conduit to wood in these kind of builds. But this is another great example of a great garden enclosure, and I love all these ideas, and hopefully these gave you some ideas and inspiration. If you want to see more enclosures, we've done several roundups in the past. I'll link down below. You can check out and get some more inspiration for protecting your garden, or if you want to build trellises or greenhouses, there's all kinds of ideas on the channel, so definitely check those videos out and subscribe if you're interested. I really appreciate it. But thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.